Wonderful. I'm Chen from Washington University in St. Louis. Thank Equalize for giving me this great opportunity to introduce our technology, sonobiopsy. Special thanks to my mentor, Anil, for providing me guidance and support through this journey. The standard diagnostic tool for brain diseases is neuroimaging using techniques such as magnetic resonance imaging or MRI. Here are MRI images of my younger brother. These images clearly show that there was a tumor in his brain with a diameter of about 2 inches. But these images cannot provide the genetic information of the tumor for precise diagnosis of the disease. Surgical biopsies are able to provide the genetic information by extracting a piece of brain tissue for sequencing. But this procedure carries a 2% risk of death and a 12% risk of complications, such as bleeding and infection. The lack of non-invasive techniques for precise diagnosis has hindered the development of effective personalized therapy for brain diseases. The mission of our company is to provide patients, like my brother, precise diagnosis without surgery. Why this mission has not been achieved in the past? One major challenge is the blood-brain barrier, or BBB. As we know, blood-based liquid biopsies allow the genetic profile of a disease to be analyzed by a simple blood draw without surgery. It has been used in the clinic for the diagnosis of cancers outside the brain. However, brain diseases cannot be reliably detected by blood tests because the blood-brain barrier blocks the release of brain tumor biomarkers, including DNA and RNA, into the blood circulation. Today, I'm super excited to share with you that we have a solution, sonobiopsy, that provides brain disease patients precise diagnosis without surgery. Our patent on the method and device for sonobiopsy is currently pending. I'm going to show you a short video to illustrate how sonobiopsy works. Sonobiopsy replaces the surgical needle used in tissue biopsy with a sonobiopsy device that generates ultrasound waves. Ultrasound with microbubbles has been established as a safe technique that reversibly disrupts the BBB for brain drug delivery. We leverage this technique to release molecular biomarkers from the brain into the bloodstream to enrich the number of circulating biomarkers. After ultrasound sonication, a blood sample is obtained for sequencing. Sonobiopsy fits existing clinical workflow. It uses the same pre-surgical MRI and the same neuronavigation setup that clinicians have been using for surgical biopsies. This makes it straightforward for doctors to adopt sonobiopsy in their clinical practice. The main change is to replace the invasive biopsy needle with a sonobiopsy device. Our sonobiopsy device can non-invasively and precisely deliver ultrasound energy at any selected brain regions. The blood samples collected afterward are analyzed using FDA-approved assays available from established companies, for example, Guardant Health. After blood collection, patient can walk home with no hospital stay needed. In this way, sonobiopsy provides genetic diagnosis at the ultrasound targeted brain region, enabling spatially resolved genetic diagnosis of brain diseases. It can target multiple brain locations without the need of multiple needle insertions. And different from invasive surgical biopsy, which is only performed once or twice throughout the patient's lifetime, sonobiopsy can be performed at multiple time points for a single patient. It can be used for the early diagnosis of brain diseases without surgical risk. Equally important, sonobiopsy can be used to monitor treatment response and guide the selection of treatment for individual patients. Sonobiopsy can also be performed once every few months in a patient's entire lifetime to identify disease recurrence. At this point, you should be convinced that sonobiopsy has competitive advantage over MRI and the surgical biopsy because it can provide genetic diagnosis of brain diseases non-invasively and longitudinally. Now you may want to know the market size for sonobiopsy. Sonobiopsy is a platform technology. Our entry market will target neurosurgery clinics for brain tumor diagnosis because genetic mutations associated with many brain tumors have been identified. We will sell our sonobiopsy devices to hospitals. Our entry market size in the US is estimated to be 250 million per year. We are not going to stop here. We will expand to neuro-oncology clinics for brain tumor monitoring. And our long-term opportunity is to expand the application of sonobiopsy to all neurological diseases. For example, Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And we have built strong momentum in the development of sonobiopsy. In the past 4 years, we have obtained convincing preclinical data in mice and pigs showing that sonobiopsy enriched the amount of brain tumor-specific DNA and RNA in the blood circulation and improved the sensitivity in the detection of brain tumor-specific mutations without causing tissue damage, as supported by multiple publications. This year, we have developed the clinical sonobiopsy device, and we are in the process of integrating our device with Medtronic neuronavigation system. And we just submitted our IRB application. Our local IRB informed us that IDE is not required for the clinical trial because sonobiopsy is considered to carry non-significant risk. Our timeline for commercialization is shown here. We have developed our clinical device with 2.5 million funding support from NIH. And last week, we just received an additional 100,000 from NIH for accelerating the commercialization of sonobiopsy. We expect to start the clinical trial in 2022, and there is an early exit opportunity in 2024 when we receive the FDA de novo classification. At this point, there are opportunities for potential acquisition by large medical device companies, for example, Medtronic. Currently, we are raising 3 million for running the clinical trial and also obtaining the FDA de novo classification. This will then lead to GMP manufacturing and the sales. We have a passionate and dedicated founding team. I'm the founder and the interim CEO. I have 15 years of experience in developing medical ultrasound devices. Dr. Eric Liusard is our co-founder. He's a practicing neurosurgeon and extremely successful entrepreneur. Chris Pasha is our CTO. He has been working on developing sonobiopsy in the past 4 years. And we are asking for suggestions of CEO candidates with experience in fundraising. In the 1980s, the introduction of MRI led to the era of neuroimaging for brain disease diagnosis. Looking forward, sonobiopsy will lead to a new era of non-invasive and spatially resolved genetic diagnosis of brain diseases. We all have relatives or friends suffer from brain diseases. I invite you to join our mission in providing precise diagnosis without surgery to patients with brain diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Any of our judges would like to ask the first question? Jeff, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, that was great. I was a little disappointed you did not mention MR-guided focused ultrasound. As you well know, I'm sure Insightec is already on the market using focused ultrasound specifically guided by MR. And of course, they can do it at a lower temperature, and they have actually shown already that they can inhibit the blood-brain barrier in a very isolated way. So I didn't understand, are you just cheaper, different, or how is this, unique in that sense, as opposed to me just doing a blood test after, using Insightec to degrade the blood-brain barrier?
That's a great question, Jeff. So I should mention that GE and the other bigger medical device companies are heavily invest in developing MR-guided ultrasound techniques to open the blood-brain barrier. And there's already clinical trials showing the feasibility and safety of using this technique for blood-brain barrier disruption. And we are built on that success. The difference between our technology and their technology is that all the existing technology try to open the blood-brain barrier for drug delivery, trying to open the blood-brain barrier so drugs can go from blood to the brain for the treatment of brain diseases. And we come in from a unique angle, but still build on existing success. We come in using this technique to release brain tumor specific or brain disease specific biomarkers from brain to the blood. In terms of technology difference, yes, there is a similarity, just like everyone have MR devices, but there's still difference in terms of how we use it, how we program the sequence. So the ultrasound parameters that we use are different from what people use for drug delivery for treating brain diseases. And then also another unique difference is going to be the Insightec system is fabulous, it's fantastic, it's beautiful, but the cost is so high. The device costs $2 million. I think even WashU are still trying to find the funding to purchase it. So we want to propose to use ultrasound device for brain disease diagnosis. We want to come in from the angle of disease diagnosis with the hope that we can also make it easier in terms of FDA approval. I hope I addressed your question.
Yep, thanks.
I have a question. It's Gladys. Dr. Chen, good presentation. A question on your clinical trial plan. Just, will you be doing safety testing? Like you said, one of the advantages could be the patient spends less time at the hospital or during the procedure, but will the clinical trial plan kind of demonstrate data to kind of show how that will be measured?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our first in human clinical trial that we already in our IRB application. So one of the main outcome is the safety. So the safety that we are going to evaluate is mainly based on, so we will perform our sonal biopsy right before our neurosurgeon dissect the tumor. And then we actually can take the tumor and do histological analysis to make sure there's no even microscopic level damage to the brain.
And then maybe as you gather that data, just to see how long the patient needs to be stable or comfortable before you send them. Okay, thank you. Yeah, you're shaking your head. Thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up this session?
I had a question, and this may just be something that I may have missed. And again, thank you for your presentation. You helped make a very complicated conversation a little bit easier to understand. So when you talk in your slide, I believe, or the video, you talked about opening the blood-brain barrier so that you could see the biomarkers, but then there was also a part that talked about treatment. And so I was a little bit confused. Are you focusing at all on also impacting on treatment at some point?
That's a great question. So that also connect with Jeff's question. So the drug delivery side is what existing technology is focusing on. So there's multiple companies and also startup companies already working on trying to develop devices, MR guided devices or neuronavigation guided devices for drug delivery. But our focus is on the diagnosis side.
Okay. So can I follow up? So and I think this is what Jeff was maybe alluding to, what's to prevent them from getting into your space?
That's a great question. So we actually already did some patent search and make sure we have the freedom to operate. So in terms, we do have our technology-wise, we do have a secret in terms of how we can make the biomarker release more efficient. So it's not just the same ultrasound parameters, same ultrasound device. We actually have to optimize, use our unique parameters that can achieve the maximize the delivery efficiency or release efficiency.
Okay, thank you.